You're now tuning in to Fatima Bey, the MindShifter. Get ready to shift your thinking and turn it into success.
Hello, and thank you for listening. How are you doing today? My hopes are that you're doing pretty well. And if you're honest with yourself and you're not doing pretty well, this message is probably for you. Maybe. But my hopes are that even if that's not the case, that you still get something out of this message and you will be doing okay by the end of it. All right, so today's message is entitled Shaken Up. Now, sometimes in life, everything seems to go wrong, and they all go wrong at the same time. It seems like everything falls apart all at the same time. Not only can that be frustrating, but it can just bring you to the brink of a breakdown. You ever felt like that? If you've never felt like that, congratulations. You're better than 99.9% of everyone else then, because most of us have felt that way at some point in time, where we're just going through something and it just feels like, why is everything happening all at once what is going on? And sometimes we might ask why. Why all of a sudden is my husband and my child acting a fool and people at work are losing their freaking minds and then the car breaks down, right? It just seems like that kind of stuff happens. Well, we're going to talk about the why of that. Well, one of the whys, only one. Because the whys could be an entire book. The reasons why could be an entire book. But I'm only going to focus on one today, all right? So I'm going to start off by talking about a brain teaser riddle. And this is one it's a quite common, it's a well-known riddle, but I think it's a good one, and it's an analogy that works for today's message. So here's your brain teaser riddle. You ready? What has to be broken before you can use it? Are you guessing? Do you know? All right. What has to be broken before you can use it? Drum roll, please. An egg. Yes. An egg has to be broken before you can use it. You could take an egg, you can stare at it. You're not going to get the yolk by staring at it. You could take an egg and place it on the counter. You're not going to get the yolk by placing it on the counter. Guess what? It has to be broken before it can be used. Just like you. Now, today I'm going to talk about, with that analogy, I'm only going to talk about its food uses. So there are many different analogies that can come out of an egg. I mean, so many different analogies for principles of life that are just awesome. And it was so hard for me to not talk about those two. But since I have limited time, I'm only going to talk about its food uses. All right. So what can you do once you break the shell of an egg? What can you do with its contents? Well, we can make scrambled eggs, which I had for breakfast this morning with cheese, and it was delicious. You can fry an egg. You can make egg salad. You can boil it and chop it up and put it in chef salad or chop salad. You can use it as a binder in baking with egg wash. You can use its egg whites and whip it up and make things from that. There's many different things that you can do with eggs. Now in America, we usually just use chicken eggs. You know, there's people in America that use more than just chicken eggs, but typically for us, it's chicken eggs that we use. That's not the case around the world. In many other parts of the world, there are other animal eggs that are used, but for the same purpose. They're eaten and used, nutrients are used in different foods and in different ways, just like we do in America. Now, the thing about an eggshell is that it's fragile. You notice when you buy eggs, you don't just throw them in a duffel bag and take them home. Guess what would happen if you did that? You'd have a big old mess in your duffel bag, wouldn't you? Because they're fragile. So they break easily. Just like you. Now, an egg shell must be broken in order to get to its contents, so that its contents can be used in a good way. Life may crack your eggshell, which is fragile, and everything you thought was together may shatter. Everything you thought you had in line and in order may shatter. And out comes this gooey contents that you now have to figure out what to do with. Isn't that like life? Isn't it? Things come along and they crack our shells, and all of a sudden we have a mess to deal with. You see, when you're going to go crack an egg, we crack it with a fork. Some of us crack it at the edge of a counter, the edge of a bowl, on the counter. There's different ways to crack an egg. But either way, you crack the egg, and typically you, depending on how you're using it, but for the most part, once we get the shell open, we pour it into a bowl, right? That's what we do for scrambled eggs. That's what I do if I'm going to put it in a cake. Whatever you're going to do with it. But that's because we had a plan. We planned to crack that egg. Life does not always go as we plan. And sometimes life will kick us in the ass or crack our eggshells. And then you have a big mess. So what do you do with that mess? And that's what I'm going to talk about. Now, sometimes in life, like I said, life cracks our shells. And sometimes everything we thought was whole is falling apart. One of the reasons why everything we thought was whole falls apart is because it really wasn't whole in the first place. I'm going to say that again. And this may hurt some of your feelings, but the truth is the truth, and you can't deal with stuff until you deal with it from reality and truth. Sometimes the reason why everything we thought was together falls apart is because it really wasn't all together in the first place. Sometimes if you build a house on sand, that old analogy, build a house on sand, it'll get blown away. Well, that plays out in real life. And then we get upset because what we thought was solid rock was actually sand. Now, sometimes that's why. That's not always the case. Sometimes it's because things are whole, but they need to be tested. They need to be proven. No one gets a degree without taking tests. I'm going to say that again. Whether you have a certificate, whether it's a degree, whether it's a certification, whatever it is, you do not get one in any culture, in any country. You do not get one without a test. And so is life, just like that. You cannot get your certification in strength and other things until it's tested. Now, that's not always comfortable, and it's not always what you want to hear, but it's the truth. And if you've been listening to me for any amount of time, you already know I am not about political correctness or always making you feel good. I'm about making you feel good after we correct what's wrong. Now, I will say that one of a modern example that we have all just watched happen before our eyes of this very principle and concept is COVID. What has COVID done? It has done many bad things. But like everything in life, even the bad things, even the worst things, there's something good we get out of it. What's good about COVID? Let me rephrase that, because some of y'all take that way out of context. Some good that has come out of the tragedy of COVID is really what I mean. Is that like an eggshell, it cracked open things that we weren't expecting, and all this yolk and egg whites oozed out. A lot of problems in our society, in our school system, in your home, at your job was revealed through COVID, through the things that COVID forced on us. It forced us to have to be at home and have to deal with the issues that, quite frankly, were already there. It forced us to have to deal with issues that were really kind of already there at work. And sometimes maybe we didn't notice, but it highlighted them for us. You see, sometimes in life, we do not see things until they're revealed to us. And sometimes it takes a tragic action for us to see what we need to fix. And I will say the good thing that has happened since COVID, there are many, 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 many things that are changing in many different arenas, in some school systems, in some homes, at some jobs, that are changing or have changed because of the light that COVID has shown upon it. Now, much like COVID and much like an eggshell, things have to get cracked. Sometimes we have to be forced to do what we should have done in the first place. It's unfortunate, but it's real. I know it's been true for me sometimes. There's some things that, man, I wouldn't have done it if life didn't force me to, but certainly glad I did now. See, as you're going through stuff, sometimes you need to take a look and assess your situation. Sometimes you might be going through stuff because it's something that you put there. But I'm not really necessarily talking about that. I'm talking about when, life hands you lemons, you make lemonade. You choose what to do with your situation. See, sometimes we complain about things, but we need those things that we're complaining about in order to bring about the change that was necessary. When you think of every single civil rights issue and every single rights fighter, whether you're talking about rights for Black people, for women, for immigrants, blah, blah, blah. I could go on with different categories. No matter who you are talking about, somebody had a situation that forced them to do something that made a change that we all enjoy the fruits of today. Think about that. That was an eggshell cracking. That was the pressure that was needed to cause the movement necessary to make the changes that would affect thousands, if not millions. Civil rights, for sure, no matter which kind of civil rights you're talking about, has already affected millions. Think about that. When you are going through, think about how you're going through. Something else I wanted to point out, and I don't know who I'm talking to, but I'm talking to some people in particular with this right now. Sometimes you have prayed for a particular situation or a particular person, and right after you prayed, everything seemed to go haywire and get worse. And you're like, what the hell, God? Are you listening to me? But what you don't realize is that's precisely what's happening. He did hear you, and he's answering. Sometimes you may pray for something in someone and things get worse. That's because sometimes things have to get worse before they get better. And not get worse because everybody needs to suffer, but get worse because that quote unquote worst thing is the very thing that'll make the change happen that you asked for. Do you hear me? So be careful what you pray for, because you just might get it. Now, what I want to leave you with is, as you're going through these things, no matter what we're going through or why we're going through, the determination of how you're going through is all up to you. I'm going to say that again. No matter what we're going through or why we're going through, the determination of how you're going through is up to you. Completely. You see, you can go through and you can get something out of it, or you can choose to complain about it and continue a woe is me story for the rest of your life, and it will have been wasted. Are you going to take what you're going through, examine it, and get the best you can out of it since you're going through it anyway? Or are you going to take it and let it be a sob story and a self-loathing, self-pity story of how you went through, and that's the end of it? Why the hell would you do that? Why go through all that and not get something out of it? That doesn't make any sense. Really. So, as you're going through, it's your choice what you get out of it. You can get a victorious testimony out of it, or you can get a self-pity corner out of it. That's up to you. Not that your hurts and pains aren't legitimate and your feelings aren't legitimate. So please don't mistake me as saying that, because that's really not what I'm saying at all. What I'm saying is what you get out of it is up to you. So when you go through, just think about it. What's my takeaway? I want you to reflect on things that you've been through in the past. What was my takeaway from that? What's going to be my takeaway from what I'm going through right now? Because once again, that is actually your choice. You may not choose what happens to you, but you choose how you react to it. My hopes are that for those of you that are going through something or just went through something, you will take this message, you will examine, and that you will get a whole lot out of it. That I just planted a seed that will grow into a tremendous sycamore. That'll grow into a tremendous tree for you in a good way. And again, my name is Fatima Bey. I'm the MindShifter. Thank you for listening. If you have any any questions or concerns, comments, anything like that, you can email me at radio@fatimabey.com. That's radio@FATIM as in Mary A, B as in boy, EY.com. And once again, thank you for listening.
Tune in next week for another segment of Fatima Bey, the MindShifter. For more of her teachings, subscribe to her YouTube channel at Fatima Bey, the MindShifter.